The neon-soaked streets of Los Angeles glistened under a relentless downpour, transforming the cityscape into a shimmering canvas of light and shadow. Inside an exclusive restaurant, laughter and animated conversation filled the air as Robert Downey Jr. savored an evening with friends, his charismatic presence drawing attention from nearby diners. As he stepped out into the rain-slicked night, the warmth of the evening still clinging to him, an unexpected sight caught his eye and made him pause mid-stride. Huddled near the restaurant's entrance, a frail young girl, no older than 12, sat on a worn blanket, her tattered clothes a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her. In her trembling hands, she clutched a simple handwritten sign, her eyes flickering with a mixture of hope and resignation as passers-by hurried past without a second glance. There was something about her, an unspoken plea that seemed to cut through the noise of the bustling street. Robert hesitated, his gaze fixed on the girl's hunched form. The rain continued to fall, each droplet a reminder of the harsh reality she faced. In that moment, the divide between his world of glitz and glamour and her world of struggle became painfully apparent. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring them together on this rain-soaked evening, two souls from vastly different worlds about to collide. With a deep breath, Robert made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events neither of them could have anticipated. He approached the girl, crouching down to her level, his eyes meeting hers with a gentle intensity. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the din of the city. The girl's startled gaze met his, and in that instant, a connection was forged, one that would challenge perceptions, ignite compassion, and ultimately change lives. The girl's voice trembled as she responded, I just need help. It's urgent." Her words, barely a whisper, carried a weight that seemed to hang in the air between them. Robert's brow furrowed, his mind racing with questions and concerns. He pressed gently, "What do you need the money for?" His tone was calm yet firm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the street around them. The girl's gaze shifted, her inner struggle evident in the way she fidgeted with the frayed edges of her sign. After what seemed like an eternity, she murmured, "It's not for me, but I don't know if I should say." The hesitation in her voice was palpable, a testament to the burden she carried. Robert, sensing her unease, decided to change his approach, his eyes softening as he asked, "Have you eaten dinner yet?" When she shook her head, Robert made a split-second decision. "Come on, let's get something to eat," he said, gesturing towards a small cafe across the street. "It's too cold to be out here alone." The girl hesitated, her eyes darting between Robert and the safety of her familiar spot. Finally, with a barely perceptible nod, she gathered her meager possessions and followed him. As they settled into a quiet corner of the cafe, warm drinks in hand, Robert could see the girl's defenses slowly beginning to crumble. "Nobody wanted to help me today," she admitted, her voice barely audible over the soft hum of conversation around them. "They all pretend they don't see me." The raw honesty in her words struck a chord in Robert's heart, reminding him of the often overlooked struggles that existed just beyond the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Robert leaned in, his voice gentle but probing. "Now that you're warm, can you tell me what's going on?" He watched as the girl's fingers tightened around her cup, her internal struggle evident in the way she avoided his gaze. Finally she spoke, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I just need to save someone before it's too late." Intrigued, Robert felt his pulse quicken. "Who?" he asked, unable to mask the curiosity in his voice. The girl's response was unexpected and heartbreaking. "My kitten, Toby," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "My parents gave him to me before they died. He's all I have left of them." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, a testament to the depth of her loss and the desperation of her current situation. As the girl continued to speak, Robert found himself drawn deeper into her story. She spoke of an uncle who saw Toby as nothing more than a burden, of hiding the kitten to keep him safe, and of the sickness that now threatened his life. "That's why I need money, to save him," she concluded, her eyes meeting Robert's with a mixture of hope and fear. Robert felt a deep pang in his chest, the girl's story stirring something within him. Without hesitation, he placed a reassuring hand over hers. "Let's go find him," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We'll get him help. You don't have to do this alone." The girl's eyes widened in disbelief, a glimmer of hope breaking through her despair. "You'd really do that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As they hurried through the dimly lit streets, Robert's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. The girl led him to a quiet alley where she crouched behind some boxes and carefully lifted a small blanket. There, curled in a basket, lay Toby, a frail little kitten, barely moving. His soft meow was weak, almost desperate, tugging at Robert's heartstrings. "He's very weak," Robert said, his voice tight with concern. "We need to get him to a vet, now." The urgency in his tone was not lost on the girl, whose face paled at his words. "But I don't have money," she whispered, her voice cracking with the weight of her helplessness. Robert met her gaze with unwavering certainty. "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it." At the veterinary clinic, the minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity as they waited in the lobby. Robert could feel the girl's anxiety radiating off her in waves, her small frame tense with worry. Finally, the vet emerged, her expression serious as she delivered the news. "Toby has an obstruction in his digestive system. He needs surgery. It's a delicate procedure, but without it, he won't make it." The girl's face drained of color, her eyes filling with silent desperation as she looked up at Robert. Without hesitation, he placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We're going to do the surgery," he assured her, his voice steady and resolute. "Don't worry about the cost. Toby is going to get the help he needs." As tears welled in the girl's eyes, a mix of relief and fear, Robert felt the weight of his promise settle on his shoulders. As Toby was prepped for surgery, Robert sat beside the girl in the waiting room, his mind whirling with thoughts of the uncle she had mentioned. He couldn't help but wonder about the man who could be so callous towards a child's beloved pet, especially one that represented such a precious connection to her deceased parents. The contrast between the girl's devotion and her uncle's apparent indifference was stark and troubling. "Tell me more about your uncle," Robert gently probed, hoping to understand the full scope of the situation. The girl's shoulders slumped as she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. He says he can't afford to keep me and Toby, that we're both just extra mouths to feed." The pain in her eyes was palpable, a testament to the emotional toll of living with someone who viewed her as a burden. Robert felt a surge of anger at the uncle's attitude, but he kept his voice calm for the girl's sake. "Has he always been like this?" he asked, trying to gauge if there was any hope for change. The girl shook her head, her eyes distant as she recalled happier times. "He used to be different before he lost his job. Now he's always angry, always talking about how hard everything is." As the girl spoke, Robert began to see a more complex picture emerge. The uncle, once perhaps a caring guardian, had been beaten down by circumstances, his frustration and helplessness manifesting as cruelty towards those dependent on him. It was a sobering reminder of how economic hardship could warp a person's perspective, turning them against even the most innocent and vulnerable. Hours ticked by as Robert and the girl waited for news of Toby's surgery. The tension in the air was palpable, each passing minute feeling like an eternity. Robert found himself pacing the waiting room, his mind racing with thoughts of what more he could do to help this young girl and her beloved kitten. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, a stark reminder of the power that came with his privileged position. Finally, after what seemed like an age, the vet emerged from the operating room. Her face was serious but not grim, and Robert felt a flicker of hope. "The surgery was successful," she announced, her voice steady and professional. "Toby is stable, but he's very weak. The next 24 hours are critical." The girl exhaled sharply, overwhelmed by the news. "He's going to be okay?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The vet's response was measured. neither overly optimistic nor pessimistic. "We're hopeful," she said, "but he'll need a lot of care." Robert smiled gently at the girl, trying to infuse some positivity into the situation. "That means Toby's on the road to coming home," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. The girl's eyes filled with tears, a mix of relief and lingering fear evident in her expression. As the reality of the situation sank in, Robert realized that their journey was far from over. Saving Toby's life was just the first step. Ensuring he had a safe and loving home to return to would be the next challenge. The girl's unstable living situation loomed large in his mind, a problem that would require more than just financial resources to solve. Over the next few days, as Toby regained his strength in the veterinary clinic, Robert found himself increasingly invested in the girl's story. He visited the clinic daily, bringing food and comfort to both the girl and her recovering kitten. It was during one of these visits that the girl, her voice tinged with worry, confessed, "My uncle won't let me keep him. I don't know what to do." The admission hit Robert like a punch to the gut. He had hoped that the uncle's heart might soften in light of recent events, but it seemed the man's stance remained unchanged. Robert's mind raced, considering and discarding various solutions. Finally he spoke, his voice filled with determination. "We'll find a solution. You're not alone in this." Driven by a newfound sense of purpose, Robert began to make calls, tapping into his vast network of contacts. He reached out to child welfare organizations, animal rescue groups, and even his own legal team. The complexity of the situation became increasingly apparent. This wasn't just about finding a home for a kitten, but about ensuring the safety and well-being of a vulnerable child. As Robert delved deeper into the girl's situation, a startling revelation came to light. The uncle, it turned out, was not her legal guardian. The girl had been living with him informally since her parents' death, slipping through the cracks of an overburdened system. This discovery opened up new possibilities, but also raised difficult questions about the girl's future. In a twist that no one saw coming, Robert's investigation into the girl's background unearthed a shocking truth. The girl's parents, it turned out, had been respected veterinarians who had tragically died in a car accident 2 years prior. They had left behind not only their daughter, but also a small animal clinic that had been forced to close after their death. This revelation hit Robert like a bolt of lightning, suddenly illuminating the depth of the girl's connection to Toby and her desperate desire to save him. It wasn't just about a pet. It was about honoring her parents' legacy and holding on to the last living link to the life she had lost. The weight of this realization settled heavily on Robert's shoulders, deepening his resolve to help. As the truth came to light, Robert saw the girl in a new light. Her determination to save Toby wasn't just the act of a child clinging to a beloved pet. It was the actions of a daughter trying to keep her parents' memory alive. The strength and resilience she had shown in the face of such overwhelming loss left Robert in awe. With this new information, the stakes seemed higher than ever. It wasn't just about finding a home for a girl and her kitten anymore. It was about preserving a family legacy and giving a child a chance to follow in her parents' footsteps. Robert knew that whatever solution they found would have to honor this newly discovered history. Armed with the knowledge of the girl's background, Robert threw himself into finding a solution with renewed vigor. He reached out to veterinary associations, explaining the unique circumstances of the case. The response was overwhelming. Offers of support and assistance poured in from all corners of the veterinary community, touched by the story of one of their own. Through a network of contacts, Robert found an organization that specialized in placing children in caring homes. "They have programs where you can learn about caring for animals, just like your mom did," he told the girl, watching as her eyes lit up with a spark of hope. "You think I could become a vet like her?" she asked, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Robert grinned, feeling a surge of optimism. "Absolutely," he assured her. "You just need a chance, and we're going to make sure you get it." And the girl's face broke into a smile, the first real smile Robert had seen since they met. It was a moment of transformation, a glimpse of the bright future that could lie ahead. As the pieces began to fall into place, Robert felt a sense of awe at how a chance encounter on a rainy night had led to this moment. He realized that in trying to save a kitten and help a child, he had stumbled upon a way to honor the memory of two dedicated veterinarians and potentially shape the future of their daughter. While Robert and the girl focused on building a brighter future, the uncle remained a looming presence in the background. As news of the developments reached him, his initial reaction was one of anger and defensiveness. He lashed out, accusing Robert of interfering in matters that didn't concern him and threatening legal action. However, as the full story came to light, the truth about the girl's parents, the closure of their clinic, and the community's rallying support, the uncle found his anger giving way to a complex mix of emotions. Shame, regret, and a dawning realization of his own failings began to take root. He had been so consumed by his own struggles that he had failed to see the depth of his niece's pain and the importance of her connection to Toby. In a moment of brutal self-reflection, the uncle was forced to confront the harsh reality of his actions. He had taken in his orphaned niece out of a sense of duty, but had failed to provide the emotional support and understanding she so desperately needed. The contrast between his own behavior and the kindness shown by a stranger, a celebrity no less, was a bitter pill to swallow. As the days passed, the uncle's demeanor began to change. His angry outbursts gave way to quiet introspection. He reached out to Robert, not with threats, but with tentative questions about the plans for his niece's future. It was a small step, but a significant one. The first sign that perhaps there was hope for redemption and healing for all involved. With Toby on the road to recovery and plans for the girl's future taking shape, a new challenge emerged, helping her transition to her new life. Robert, now fully invested in the girl's welfare, worked tirelessly with the placement organization to ensure that every detail was perfect. He wanted to make sure that this brave young girl, who had already endured so much, would have the best possible chance at happiness. The girl, for her part, faced the changes with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The prospect of a new home, new guardians, and a chance to pursue her dream of becoming a veterinarian filled her with hope. Yet, the thought of leaving behind the only life she had known since her parents' death, even if it hadn't been an ideal one, was daunting. As the day of the move approached, Robert noticed the girl becoming quieter, more withdrawn. Concerned, he gently probed, "Are you worried about the move?" The girl nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "What if they don't like me? What if I'm not good enough to be a vet like my parents?" The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord in Robert's heart. Kneeling down to her level, Robert looked her in the eye. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firm but kind. "You are brave, you are kind, and you have a heart big enough to move mountains. Any family would be lucky to have you. And as for being a vet," Robert continued, his voice filled with conviction, "as for being a vet, you've already shown more dedication and compassion than many adults I know. Your parents would be incredibly proud of you." The girl's eyes widened, a glimmer of hope shining through her tears. She nodded slowly, absorbing his words and drawing strength from them. As the day of the move arrived, the girl's uncle made an unexpected appearance. His face was etched with a mixture of shame and determination as he approached Robert and his niece. I want to apologize," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I failed you both, you and Toby. I was so caught up in my own problems that I couldn't see what was really important." The girl looked at her uncle, conflicting emotions playing across her face. After a moment of hesitation, she stepped forward and hugged him. "I forgive you," she whispered. The uncle's eyes filled with tears as he hugged her back, years of misunderstanding and hurt beginning to heal in that simple gesture. Robert watched the scene unfold, feeling a sense of completion. The uncle's transformation was the final piece of the puzzle. turning what could have been a story of loss and separation into one of healing and new beginnings. As they prepared to leave for the girl's new home, there was a sense that everyone involved had been changed for the better. The day finally arrived for the girl to move to her new foster home. As they drove through the city, Robert could sense her mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Remember," he said gently, "this is a new chapter in your life. It's okay to be scared, but don't let fear stop you from embracing this opportunity." As they pulled up to a charming house with a well-tended garden, the girl's eyes widened. A couple stood on the porch, warm smiles on their faces. "Hello," the woman said, stepping forward. "We're so excited to meet you." The man beside her nodded, adding, "And we can't wait to meet Toby, too." The girl looked up at Robert, a question in her eyes. He nodded encouragingly, and she took a deep breath before stepping forward. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm really happy to be here." As introductions were made and Toby was gently transferred to his new home, Robert felt a sense of rightness settle over the scene. Before leaving, Robert crouched down to the girl's level one last time. "Remember," he said, his voice low and intense, "you have the power to shape your own future. Your parents gave you a beautiful gift, a love for animals and a desire to help them. Now it's up to you to nurture that gift and make it grow." Months passed, and Robert received a letter. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, recognizing the girl's handwriting. "Toby is healthy now," she wrote, "and I'm learning about animal care. Thank you for showing me that there are still good people in the world. You gave me a chance when no one else did. I'll never forget that." Robert folded the letter, a deep sense of fulfillment washing over him. He thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment, a chance encounter on a rainy night, a desperate plea for help, and the power of compassion to change lives. It was a reminder that even in the glittering world of Hollywood, real magic happened in small acts of kindness. As he sat at his desk, Robert began to write in his journal. "Sometimes a small act of kindness can change a life," he wrote, "and in return, our own lives change for the better." He paused, reflecting on how this experience had affected him, deepening his understanding of the impact he could have beyond the silver screen. The story of the girl and Toby served as a powerful reminder that everyone, regardless of their status or circumstances, has the power to make a difference. It was a lesson in empathy, in seeing beyond surface appearances to the heart of what truly matters. As Robert closed his journal, he felt reinvigorated, ready to carry this lesson forward into every aspect of his life.